Hello and welcome to a semi-moderated discussion between infamous cartoonist Ben Passmore. He'll be talking about his latest book that comes out October 7th, called Black Arms to Hold You Up. Many people will know him from his pandering work, Your Black Friend, the one at least one grant and a series of awards, or Sports as Hell, which got an Eisner inexplicably. Joining Ben is Bill Campbell, head over at a restaurant, and also he will be here talking about his infamous book, When the Klan Came to Town.
That one? Okay.
Yeah, which I know came out in 2021. So thank you for, hopefully you can remember what that was like. And his latest book is
Adventures of the Lion Man.
Adventures of the Lion King. The Lion Man. So
Joel's not going to fight you.
So originally I thought it would be nice for. Oh wait, hold on. Let me get in, Ben. Okay. Thank you for the introduction. Clearly that was off the cuff and there was no research done.
Yeah.
You only get away with it because you're handsome. Okay.
I mean, these are all volunteers. So
yeah.
Get what you get.
That's true. So I think my original idea is we would sort of go back and forth. The book that I have coming out is a bit of history of Black armed resistance in the United States, and we've talked about it quite a bit in the past because we know each other in real life. I promise. And Bill is actually the first person that got a look at the early scripts of the book. So I thought maybe we could start off just talking about both the works a bit. Do you want to start off?
For one, because of that, because he was in Mexico City when I read it, so I had to call him there. And I've been obsessed with going on a writer's retreat in Mexico City ever since. It's really kind of annoying.
Yeah, tough time to go.
But I really want it. Well, yeah, now I kind of don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was born here, but my dad wasn't. All of a sudden you're just like, hey, birthright citizenship. What are you talking about? But anyway, that's a whole other thing. But yeah, let's talk about. So one, well, we've been talking about this book forever, and then you had me. I had the pleasure of reading the first script, and I was just like, no, because you just wanted to know how it worked, and I thought oh wow, yeah, this totally works because I read your pandering work.
Yes.
So
yes,
I can visualize it, but I have to say it's so much better than I envisioned it. I'm really impressed with what you did.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and you're actually funnier on paper
than in real life.
Yeah. I was like, wait, is he funny? That's crazy. Yeah, but
yeah, just lay it on too thick, Bill.
I am just gushing.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe do you want to?
Well, I wanted to ask you first, I kind of have an idea because we do know each other in real life. Where is this thing on? Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. All right. So one, I want to know what inspired you to do this? Because as Ben said, that this is all about violent Black resistance in the U.S. So I'm really curious, what inspired you to do it, and then what made you actually do it?
Right. Well, so just to start off with the premise, since it's since the book comes out in October, most people in the room have not read the book. Probably read the most of it. But the book essentially follows my father dragging me through in a sort of magic school bus kind of way, sort of several instances in the history of maybe a Black nationalism, but sort of the connective tissue is nationalism, but also material struggle against the police in different kind of ways. So it starts in 1900 with someone named Robert Charles, who was sort of a proto Black nationalist. At the time, people were both Black and white for very different reasons, talking and sort of strategizing how to get Black people back to Africa. And Robert Charles was an early advocate of that. He was from Mississippi. He was like a railroad worker, but had a bunch of jobs. But he would spend his off time distributing these sort of like magazines about, going back to Africa, and these newspapers by, several different ministers that were sort of like a mix of like, sort of like a Martin Luther King, like nonviolence sort of thing, but also were like, we all need guns to deal with white violence. So it sort of carries through that. We learn about Robert Williams, who's sort of like the grandfather of the later sort of Black Power movement. We meet Assata Shakur, the Republican of Africa. So it goes all the way through until about 2016 with Michael Xavier Johnson, who's sort of who's in Texas, and he sort of does this repeat of Robert Charles, because Robert Charles, he ends up in a fight with like 10,000 soldiers, police officers, and like farmers that have come from outside the city to lynch him, and he doesn't make it because the odds are not very good, but he
Like forced. Yeah.
but pretty impressive. And then Mike Xavier Johnson, he goes out one night in Dallas and takes on a bunch of police officers. I think he kills like 11 in response to the video of Philando Castile being murdered. But anyway, so it's sort of drawing a through line through those.
Well, he was called the Dallas Sniper, but he actually didn't snipe, if I remember.
No.
Like he actually ran up on my.
He did.
Yeah. Like,
not a whole lot of sniping.
But they wanted to act like, they wanted to act like they were taken advantage of, but actually like he was just better trained than them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a whole other thing.
So to answer the question, like why I wanted to do it, and this is sort of addressed in the book. I was struggling, even to the point, after I had sent Bill an early script, I was sort of struggling with like what my role personally in the book is, like what the POV is, and what I can provide as someone who is a cartoonist but not a historian. I did an enormous amount of research for the book, primary and secondary sources. I also like already had sort of like a peripheral relationship with some of the kids of like former Black Panthers. So I had a bit of an in terms of like talking to, if not the subjects, because a lot of these people were dead, or the people around them. But I didn't feel like, after a certain point, I didn't feel like I could sort of comfortably sort of represent myself as someone who can provide sort of like something like a definitive history. I kept thinking about the C.R.L. James quote, where in Black Jacobins, which is a history book about the Haitian Revolution, he sort of talks about how he's like not trying to create a total work or like a total history, but just to let people know that it was there, that these things had happened. And as I was working on the book, it was took about 5 years for me to do. Increasingly, the state was attacking, among other people's history, Black history.
Right.
So it felt important for me to just sort of create something that could generate interest. And also, as someone who like came up in anarchism, like a lot of the study among anarchist milieus is like very personal. It's not like Marxist Leninism or something where there's like a definitive book that you read. Right. A lot of it is just sort of like reading through other people's reflections. Sometimes it's academic work. A lot of times it's just people who are in the streets. So I felt like I could make it if I prioritized trying to engender people like a personal investment in study, and study that leads to action. And at that point, it felt, relatively speaking, like pretty easy to dive in and create the work.
Right.
Yeah.
So then, because and it's something that you address in the book, is because we're often portrayed, Black people, that is, often portrayed as victims, and always like the non-violence, and it's like always kind of, because they don't want us to shoot them, which is fair. That was a joke.
Yeah.
I thought I was about to shoot you. Come on, man.
It was a fact.
It's like, it's a
no
fact.
punchline. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why they love Nelson Mandela so much. But anyway, I'm here all day.
Yeah.
But why did you feel that it was important to focus on the fact that there has been armed resistance?
Yeah. I think, and you're sort of saying this like, there does feel like from many different sort of like angles, like a pretty decisive or like a pretty avid marginalization of like armed self-defense in the Black community. You know, like despite the fact that it's in my opinion, like especially during Reconstruction is a big reason why we're still here. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
And there isn't, I think now there's this perceived contradiction between armed self-defense, even preemptive self-defense, which is a big part of the Black liberation, like our history being like, listen, like we know they're coming, let's not give them a chance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And part of what I wanted to write is like, there's actually no contradiction between, you know, like strategies of nonviolence and armed self-defense. There's a history of them being deeply connected. Robert F. Williams was a contemporary of Martin Luther King, and he himself had stated just a lot of not deference but respect for the nonviolence movement. But he was like, I myself don't find any dignity in it.
Right.
So I won't do it, but I will show up armed, just like the Deacons for Defense, who I think are much more well known. He's like, I will stand here and protect you.
Right. Negroes with guns.
Right. Yeah, he wrote Negroes with Guns, but also there's a book by Akinyele Umoja, who's one of the founding members of the Malcolm X grassroots movement. He wrote a book called We Will Shoot Back, which is a history starting in Reconstruction and going into, I want to say, the late 60s, early 70s, that he writes about this, that he's like, he writes about that Southern Black gun culture was a huge part of the reason that Northerners who were trying to practice nonviolence, why they lived, the ones that were not killed, and that they saw no contradiction between participating in nonviolence, or at least supporting, you know, nonviolence activists, and they themselves being armed.
What is your sorry, but you know the story about when Barry Rustin first met MLK, right?
You're talking about how he had like guns all over his house.
Yeah. Well, people don't realize that because everybody's like, oh, you know, MLK, you know, nonviolence and stuff. But like during the Montgomery bus boycott, you know, Barry Rustin comes down there and because, you know, he was like our leading pacifist. I mean, he's a Quaker, right? And he gets there and like the whole house is like full of guns, right? Like, and they're like, wait, you can't actually be nonviolent and defend yourself, right? So like even because it is Southern gun culture, right? So you're like, yeah, nonviolent, except, you know, if you like try to shoot me, right? Which I actually think is actually a fair line.
Yeah.
but, you know, but that's not, you know, that's not passive.
Yeah. And I mean, there's no, like, to me, just in terms of like strategy, because I think Southerners, like if you read this nonviolent stuff will get you killed, like there was a lot of like interface between Southerners, you know, who were, you know, being organized by the Northerners in some cases, at least in the minds of the Northerners. There was like, I'm high and I lost my thought. There was like this gun culture. It over time, and it informed people like Kwame Ture, who came down initially being, or a Max Stanford, who's much less well known, but is he formed the Revolutionary Action Movement, which was one of the organizations that inspired the Panthers. They came down to the South, and there's just sort of all these stories about their minds being sort of like opened by Southerners being like, look, this nonviolent stuff as a strategy makes sense,
right,
for what you're trying to do in this instance,
right?
But it's not like, you have to understand where to drop it, and if you like, I think it's really, really important for people to sort of like understand the nuances and the contradictions between these sort of like not at all really divided tendencies.
Right.
Like they were able to sort of like we are able to, you know, like whatever exist at all, because there was sort of these like difficult tensions between these tendencies, but they were very much together.
So, for me, like I see, especially reading it, I see the importance of that. But what is it that you're trying to convey to lovely people here, with the nuance? We're trying to actually putting that to try to insert that kind of nuance into it. So it's sort of like, our political structure is like vote, vote, vote. That's your political action, when it's actually not. And I think like for us, like they're always stressing nonviolence, and I'm thinking it's really funny that the people with the guns and the billy clubs and the badges and the electric chair, the tanks and the helicopters and nuclear weapons are saying violence isn't the answer, right?
Yeah.
So, what would you like to achieve, or what are like the questions that you want people to be asking themselves when they read?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. I think like one clarification that came up when I had some other people like read it, and like one suggestion I had was like to have a section of the book dedicated to advocating for like armed resistance specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually thought that it was, I think for me, what I would like to instill in people is like a personal investment in diving deeper into radical histories, but also like radical presence. Like I think a lot of the way that people are engaging in social media is very surface level, and I think we all, for the most part, are aware of that critique. But there's, I think, maybe less conversation about like what it means to engage in the contradictions of like the political past or the political present in a like productive way. Like you can really see it even with the confusion over like whatever the kid's name, Tyler Robinson, who shot someone. Who cares who he
Charlie
shot?
Kirk,
But
Captain Kirk. He saw Captain Kirk.
But there's like, but right, Captain Kirk.
Oh, okay, yeah.
One too many alien ladies. But but I think there's this sort of like rabid confusion over like how to analyze the politics of people. Cool, and confusing. And it was true for Luigi Mangione also,
right?
Where it's like people I think at sort of in general are not engaging in nuanced political figures that are sort of like not easily sort of like put in a specific category. And I think a lot of it has to do with like the current political, like that sort of activist industry that came up in response to like the Black Power movement,
right?
Where it became very, very important. Well, number one, like a lot of rich people realized that if you fund the quote unquote revolution, you will demobilize like whole populations of people. And sort of within that, because it itself is an industry, it becomes very, very important to sort of categorize people in like a very neat way. And I think we sort of adopted that without realizing it. Because when you look at like the Panthers, who like, I don't really focus on the Panthers.
Oh, you did not?
Yeah, I focus on Asada, right. And I include her critiques of the Panthers. Some of that had to do with just like how overexposed the Panthers are in general. And in many times, like that overshadows the massive ecosystem that existed around them.
I mean, I think that the thing that I one of the many things that I loved about this was, well, one of the things that when you package the Panthers, right, is that they exclude the women who did most of the work.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of like the actual political thoughts that they had.
Yeah.
Are guided by the women there, right? And it's like clearly why we have free lunches and stuff, right? But I think like you're focusing on Asada, but you also kind of bring that up. And I think like one of the things that I should ask you, because like you don't romanticize any of this. And I think that was like a very a well appreciated approach to me. Mainly because, nuance, especially with the ever shorter forms of discourse that we use, like, like TikTok is even shorter than Twitter, right? Like,
mm-hmm.
That you're, it would have been very easy to just kind of have like a cookie cutter version of even Asada, but you, with the Panthers and then the revolutionary movements that follow, like you're actually very very critical, like as in critiquing as opposed to
I think and maybe I appreciate what you're saying. I think this sort of ties into like the question of like what I wanted people to get out of it. There is a lot of like and I think we talked about it maybe when you first read the script, there was like in a lot of ways I'm having an inside conversation outside,
right?
And that itself, there's like a lot of tension there. Because like I understand the insistence on romanticizing a part of our history that is like was very much demonized at its time, and it is especially demonized now. But I think something that concerns me that came up in my own research around it. I read this book called The Black Panther Party Reconsidered, and it was a bunch of rank and file Panthers reflecting on their time in the party several decades after.
Right.
And there was so for me in this book, it was like I am an anarchist. A lot of sort of the political aspirations of, Panthers in particular, are not exactly my own.
Right.
But so I think, but I wanted to be very careful and not just have these historical figures vocalizing my opinions, right? Because you can cherry pick all sorts of quotes, and people do this. They make, George Jackson sound like he's into small business or he's like into insurrectionism. People do it all the time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, yeah, Jesus is a Catholic. I get it.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was like, I wanted to be very sure that, and I have a reading list in the back of the book because I want people to understand that like these critiques are in the text.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think like, number one, I wrote the book for Black people to read, which is not smart because all the money is in writing Black stuff for white people. But I thought, it was very important.
I'm not even gonna. You know what I'm.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah. But and so with that in mind, like I really wanted people, in the way that I sort of approach writing about the different subjects, I don't write about their whole lives. I try to take emblematic sort of scenes from their life, and I want the reader, which in my mind is just another Black person, to recognize themselves in the pages of the work, and also like both the things that are maybe exciting about people and the things that are maybe not so exciting, that are maybe incongruous or problematic, and understand these people as they evolve. Like with the Asada chapter, this is a section of it here, we have BLA era Asada with these sort of like Emory Douglas referencing posters. Then there's another section here where she's like going to like visit the Garveyites.
Right.
And then there's an earlier section where it's her as like a little girl tricking would-be Johns in Harlem and stealing their money. And each chapter is only like maybe 5 pages at the most. And I just thought it was like, this is maybe a better way for people to move away from the mythology of these people. Like Assad is still alive, you know, and sort of recognize them as people, but also recognize that you are these people too. Like that ties into something, and I'll stop babbling in a second. But
we're literally here to babble.
No, that's true. But but something I was honored to meet Ashanti Alston, who is a former Panther, former member of the Black Liberation Army. He did I think a 12-year bid in prison. But something he talked about a lot, and some other people who, like Safia Bakari talks a lot, is they're like, when we were Panthers, we were teenagers.
Yeah, that's like one of the things that people always forget.
And we went on, like the ones who lives evolved. You know what I mean? And Ashanti
to sell hot sauce. Oh, barbecue sauce.
In some instances. But Ashanti's like, he was like,
Evolutionary's got to eat.
Like I was talking to him last weekend, and he was like, so I feel like he's like a lot of people, or a lot of times it feels like people are waiting for us to lead the revolution.
Right.
But you are in fact the person that you're waiting for. And to me, that's like specifically like that's if there's rah-rah things within anarchist theory, it's that. It's like at the end of the day, like you are the one that you're waiting for to live out the liberation that you want. So I think if I was being prescriptive at all in this book, it was really for that. It's like, look, here are some people that are just like you. They are also flawed, and that didn't keep them from dedicating themselves to living the kind of life that they want to.
Right. I mean, I did like the Karenga nod, because like as soon as you put him in, I was like, oh, is he doing that? Oh, he did. Wow, that's cool. And then I really love the Crips thing.
Oh,
because a lot of people don't realize like a lot of these. It's sort of like one of the things I read about, like, because I've kind of like a little semi curious about the Rat Pack. And one of the things that got me, because like only one of them was born white,
Right.
right? So like I was like, so it was like really interesting because like, oh, so like when they call themselves a Rat Pack, it was like a big fuck you to everybody.
Right.
It's like, but then the one thing that I thought was kind of interesting because Sammy Davis Jr. like everybody kind of like call him like a sellout, Uncle Tom, all that stuff. Him and Oscar Brown Jr. used to run like theater program with the Blackstone Rangers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like everybody's calling him a sellout. He's like running theater troops with gangs. Right? Like,
Some of who later became Moors, however you feel about it.
Yeah. It's the El Rukins, man. They wanted to work with Gaddafi, but that's later. Candyman had nothing to do with that.
Right.
But no, like I just think it's kind of like a very fascinating thing, which is like kind of like a lot of things that you're bringing up is like these times and these people are a lot more complicated. But we always want to, it's sort of like we always want to distill Bob Marley to God, now what's that legend?
Yeah.
Right? It's like it's like, and I think that you very much expand, and I think fairly. Right, like because I mean I don't think that a lot of people know that the Crips start off as like, or like a lot of these LA gangs. First they start off as self-defense because the white gangs were beating the shit out of them.
Yeah,
and then also a lot of them around the country had like that whole lumpen proletariat revolutionary impulse that just kind of got deindustrialized, I guess, with the rest of urban America.
Yeah, and it's like I think in some ways I feel like
we're sounding really highfalutin, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah, we could go to questions, right? I think it's almost 3. Are we supposed to go till 3:30?
3:30. So we have like 15 more minutes to chat.
Okay, yeah,
or maybe 10.
Okay,
I don't know how bored are they? Really, that's kind of
How bored are we by show of hands?
Oh, like they go.
Okay,
You know what?
Sorry.
I didn't know he was going to do.
I know. I was baiting Joel. Yeah. So something. Yeah. So there's a lot of things like that where I got really interested in a question that I feel like people will sort of like ask me a lot, and that I was asking when I was much younger. Like when I was 15 or 16, I came across my very first like Black Power related book. It's by this guy Julius Lester. I talk about the book,
did mention it.
But yeah, the book is called "Look Out, Whitey," because Black Power is coming to get your mama. Which as a non-reader, I was like, let's go,
It's not really specific though. Like that's like I'm getting your mom. Like that's like that doesn't mean like any miscellaneous.
Yeah. And as the and I have a white mama, so I was like,
I know
let's see where this goes. Yeah. But where was I going?
To the Dutchman.
So I think so I read that book, and that book basically covers like civil rights era and into the Black Power movement, and maybe mentions like drum, like this revolutionary union in Detroit. And I, of course, like I had the same question that I think most people have. I was like, well, what happened? You know what I mean? And something that I like, again, if you talk to Panthers who are still active, they will be like, so the answer, only part of the answer is COINTELPRO. That's only part of the answer.
Yeah, right.
The other answer is ways in which we fed into authoritarian structures that were mirrorings of the state, like not to always name drop him, but Ashanti Alston names the fact that like Huey Newton, after he came out of prison in the 70s, he went in.
That's not for
next room. Okay,
it's not for us.
I got a clap line for Huey.
Nobody's
from over there. But he went in, minister of, I think he was minister of defense when he went in, and he came out the supreme servant. Like he came out like a
scary.
Yeah,
his shit is wild.
And if you talk to Panthers, they're like, look, and you mentioned it, misogyny played so many parts in the destruction of the party and the BLA as well.
Right.
Whatchamacallit. So anyway, so like leading on that, like people will always be like, well, how could, like, what's up with these gangs? And to your point, like the Crips specifically, and I think that there's some sort of like debate about like how true it is that they started off like a political group, because obviously like the Slosses and stuff, they were around since the 50s. Like West Coast, like sort of gang community comes out of like car culture in LA and stuff. But anyway, but I like to believe that yes, that they were a political formation first, but because they had no elders, because the Panthers were either dead or in prison or strung out,
Right.
and they lost their way. And so in the book, I'm trying to sort of draw that line also. It's like how, like, because it's still, I think a lot of the subversion or the subversiveness that we sort of like get from, like even hip hop culture, but like gang culture, I think a lot of that is still the DNA of the Black Power movement with like the analysis removed.
Yes, I can totally see that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Do we want to?
Did you want to? Well, only we sound.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the Klan? I mean, I don't care.
Oh yeah. We can talk about it.
So I mean, like I don't want to do like a because I want to talk about this if you want to keep talking. Whatever you want to do.
Oh yeah. So the Klan. Do you want to say what the premise is? Has everyone?
Oh, yeah. So I guess we're talking about the day the Klan came to town real quick because I guess we're supposed to actually talk about what was it the revolutionary possibilities of what is it? What did you say?
I just wrote a description.
Oh, okay, yeah, something about history and obscured history in comics, right?
Yeah.
So
we were tackling it. I was playing Fortnite. I was like, hold on, let me lock in real quick.
Oh yeah. I didn't even pay attention. I was like, oh, what are we doing? Yeah, we're horrible. Yeah, so I wrote this book called The Day the Klan Came to Town. It is literally about an actual event that happened in my hometown, which is Carnegie, PA, which is on the border of Pittsburgh, back in 1923. So this is back when Southern, Eastern European, Irish weren't white, and my town is chock full of that. So the Klan decided to march 30,000 people on a town of 10,000. Yeah, you can just there. They outnumbered the immigrants 10-1 in the streets, and then the Klan lost. And then I put like other stuff, so you can just keep it there. Okay. Yeah, so the Klan lost, even though they marched 30,000 people down. But because everybody became white, it was a town secret. So I grew up there. And I didn't put the cover on there, but there's a cover of the church, and that was like my childhood church, the Catholic school I went to. And like literally nobody talked about it. So I don't find out about this till like 30 years after I left. And it was like my brother and I were just chatting. We were back in Pittsburgh for my mom for Easter because that's her holiday, so we all go up there. And we were talking about like the hidden history of Pittsburgh, like things that they don't teach you, like the Denora gas fire. So basically, while it was still a steel town, this town called Denora, there's an afternoon this cloud just appears over Denora and kills 14 people. Right? Like they never talked about it. The only thing they talk about Denora is like it's like the hometown of Stan Musial, right? And then I was talking about like the coal fire. Then my brother's like, yeah, like the Klan riot in Carnegie. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Because my brother grew up in New Jersey, so like he didn't even like grow up there. I was like, what are you talking about? So then I hit Google and I was like, what? Like, how did I miss this? So anyway, it was like a really fascinating story. But the main thing was I hate my hometown. The first day I got there when I was 8, I was shot with BBs and stoned and had to fight like literally everybody. So yeah. So my brilliant idea was, fuck my hometown. I get to tell all these racist white people that they're not white. Woohoo! And because nothing ever goes in the way you plan, and life has a way of kicking you in the ass, I got the exact opposite reaction that I wanted. So the main character is Sicilian, and I actually spoke like at an Italian academic conference about the book. And then on 2023 for the centennial, the Heinz History Center paid for us to go up there, and we did like this big event. The former mayor of Pittsburgh showed up, a state senator showed up, and now the town proudly proclaims how they fought the Klan in 1923. And then, because apparently I can capture the Sicilian American experience, it is now available in Italy in Italian.
Hey,
Yes, mi pisan. Yeah, it's so I did a really good thing for really bad reasons, and I've even gotten like handwritten letters from Italian Americans thanking me for telling their story.
Yeah,
I was just like,
I think like something I thought was interesting. Yeah, like in terms of like sort of contrasting our two work. I think in different ways, you're shaming your town excluded. I think our like sort of end goals were sort of similar, but it was like a very different entry point. Because if to the degree that there's a main character,
Right.
the main character is an Italian man.
Right. Sicilian.
Sorry. Yeah, I was about to say.
No.
Sicilian, yeah.
Especially, but God.
But so I thought that was...
I'm getting sensitive for my people.
And it's interesting because it even, like you're saying, and I think I remember you saying before, it's like, yeah, this was a bit out of spite, but there's actually a lot of like, something that I thought was like a really, it was like a bit of a gift, is that you are both sort of really, in so many different ways, you demonstrate that not just Italian Sicilians, but like, you know, all these people who were not considered white at that time, you do really sort of like underline the violence that they're dealing with. Right. And while also highlighting a bunch of like contradictions, right? Like the anti-blackness of a lot of these people, the hostility that happens between the different communities. And it's not nihilist, because there's a way you can do that. And I'm sure we've seen a lot of media that does it. It's like, look, everyone's just racist. And it's not really that.
No.
It's like, because it's all sort of contained in this reality of like very active white supremacy. And you understand it's like everyone's under pressure, right? And but there is also like a lot of amazing community demonstrated within the book, which I think is really interesting.
I think for me, one of the interesting things was because they were the professor was teaching it at an Italian American professor was teaching it at West Virginia University, right? And one of the things that she said that the book did was her students were really impressed because it showed them a different way of organizing.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we kind of, I think literally because because people don't actually want to get things done. So, you know, everybody has to get along. They have to be like in the same wavelength. They have to like, you know, be like in 100% agreement or even like 95% agreement. And it was like, and my point was like, one of the things that's kind of interesting is like, not only were they not white, but they were like completely alien racist to each other.
Right.
Right. And I think like one of the things about Pittsburgh that's really fascinating because, yeah, we're actually kind of mean, but like people think we're nice, which I think is like really funny. But here are a bunch of people who didn't necessarily like each other, but they literally, their lives depended on each other, right? Because like there's no better place to die at the work spot than a coal mine or a steel mill.
Right.
Right. So you have like this really kind of interesting tension, but for that instance, right, there's like, so not only do they have like these contentions and then, because, you know, like literally like 60 years ago, a mixed marriage was literally like an Italian marrying like a Jewish person.
Right.
Like that was what a mixed marriage was. Right. And I actually have a friend whose parents, like mom got disowned because she married an Italian, you know, and I think like for that instance, right, is just kind of showing like, yeah, we don't like each other, but the Klan's here.
Right.
Like, yeah, like that doesn't even make sense. But as we see now, a lot of people are just willing to die if the Klan's here, right? Yeah. Right, but like they are like, oh, the Klan's here.
Yeah.
Or like on January 7th, hey guys, let's build roads. Like, were you not here yesterday? Right. Like, so yeah, I think I accidentally came up with things, right? That are like, because I usually think like you're like asking questions more than answering anything.
Yeah.
But then there are times where you accidentally like provide sort of like pathways or guidelines or guidance, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Bye, Joel.
Yeah. Hey, we're not going to fight you.
So I think one of the questions I was going to ask you is yeah, like what was before you got as the kind of feedback that you got, what the goal, like what was the desired goal with this sort of this thing that I think was a reflection of mine, that like if Kamala had won, right, if we were in like a slightly different environment where the conversations about like who is in danger was sort of like different than it is now, I think in some ways this book could strike some people as sort of like post-racial in a kind of way. Only in that I don't think actually,
right,
but I think you could get a number of white people, and I say this because I have white people like this in my family that are like, well, the Irish got it too. It's like, but not right now. You know what I mean?
Right.
Things have changed.
Yes.
But what I think is interesting and what makes the book, I think, like very prescient is that like actually like it's been underlined even for people who do not study fascism, right?
Right.
That like in fact it is just white people that they want to have a better life, sort of. You know what I mean? Everyone else can get it. And in this way, I'm like, because for me, it's like the Klan coming to town now is different if you're talking to a bunch of like people who are now white. When back then, it's like, we can pretend that the Klan's not going to catch us, but they still don't think we're white. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Like they do. Well, also just, yeah, I mean, to exercise power, like, you don't necessarily need the Klan, right? Right. So like the Klan is more like window dressing
Yeah.
than they were like a state apparatus. Like, they're fucking cops, right? Or they're business people, or they're like your middle management HR person who just for some reason can't hire you or can't promote you. Right? So it's like it's like being white supremacy is fought like on so many different levels in so many different ways that the Klan is just sort of, and I think it's like that diffuse nature that kind of doesn't make those kinds of things feel as much of. But I also think like now that people are white, that the overriding thing is to protect whiteness, right?
Yeah.
So like, as I said, like January 6th, they came into your house to kill you. And then the next day you're like, let's build roads.
Yeah.
Right. And you see like Bolsonaro is now going to prison, but they didn't send these people to prison, which is literally what you should do.
Yeah.
Right. Like kids in the army run away from like actually getting shot, and then you get shot in response. Like you cannot run away, but it's okay to just try to overthrow the government. So like I think in a lot of ways, because white supremacy has cracks in it, that there's always like this constant need to cement those, and it's like the Klan isn't the primary way to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah. Did you want this question?
Yeah, do it. Is there
because I really want this to be more bad. I figured that we should.
Yeah. So, you got that one? Oh yeah. Do you want to raise? Does anyone got a question?
Yeah.
I see. Yeah. Is it already on?
Testing. Hey,
What's up?
What's up, y'all? I was thinking a lot about like comics as praxis and the sort of cognitive dissonance that I experience as a Black person who makes comics and like who knows that when I'm going into the process of making something, it's in service of my own revolutionary like aspirations and potentials, but we collectively kind of think of comics as a little bit less of an impactful medium, but like the things that you're talking about and the knock-on effects of the stories that y'all have chosen to tell, like really seem to have a real world impact. And I'm wondering if you have any suggestions about how to quiet that cognitive dissonance and really understand that the medium is the message.
Good.
That's a good one. Next. I don't like, in all honesty, I think that, because for those who don't know, I'm a publisher, right? So, I mean, I write too and do stuff, but we do comics and science fiction, focus mainly on brown folks, most people from all around the world, blah, blah, blah. And like, my big thing is that, we're not writing for the white gays. Like we publish white people and if they, obviously but I want people to tell their own stories because we actually literally never get to see ourselves or each other except through the white media. So like my whole thing is people should write for themselves or write for their people or whatever, and then that just kind of filters out, right? And I think like for me, because I've been fortunate enough to see some things that I've done, even though never by name, nobody ever mentions me, but I've seen different things filter out into like the common conversation. And I think like the largest part is like, I ain't trying to make anybody happy. Like if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. And I think that that's largely it. I think the largely personal resonates more with people than simply just trying to sell something.
Hey, yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. I think I resonate with that. I think I'm of two minds. And I think my answer in some way is different depending on like how your work is getting out there. Like I think, I think we're mostly people that like self-publish more or less in the room, you know, and in that way, it's like, um, as artists, as people who are sort of like contained in a white supremacist state, we're always tap dancing to a certain degree, and I think being just very real about that, I think is like really, really important for me, and I feel like sharpens sort of like what my aspirations and my expectations might be for work that I do. In general, I just like, I don't like to think of what I'm doing um, purely as art because it is a commodity. You know what I mean? Like a bunch of production, a bunch of pollution is happening every single time I make a comic. You know what I mean? And and like in black art is just like so deeply commodified. Like the United States is good at very little, but one of the things it's really good at is commodifying whatever we're doing. You know what I mean? So for me, I'm like, I try to aspire to do something that feels like not too high, you know what I mean? And be like, I'm just trying to do this thing. Like this book is like, among other things, I just want people who don't read that much, which is a lot of the United States, to get invested in this type of stuff. That's it. You know what I mean? Like if you know, if it sort of inspires people to do more, because you never really know. I mean, sounds like Helldivers inspired someone to, you know, retire Captain Kirk. So who would have called that? So it's like you really never fucking know, right? And the art stops being in our control the minute it's out there, you know. So I think for me, like I think if you and I were just having a private conversation about it, I'd be like, it's all about your mindset. Because also, you know, we tend to feel a lot less confident about what we're doing. You know what I mean? Like I think you don't necessarily need to overthink it. You know what I mean? Like just so for me, I'm like, I just try to stay true to myself. Don't really think about like the outcome so much and keep my expectations about like what might happen in the world like low. Because I'm gonna just make another comic. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I'm just out here. You know what I mean? Yeah, is there another question?
Do you feel like armed resistance and nonviolence still have any possibility of a synergy that moves us forward in an era when, to speak frankly, martyrdom doesn't have the weight it used to have? People are numb. People have rejected the concept of empathy on one side. People have had brain damage from COVID and they just don't care anymore. Like, part of the power to me of nonviolence was people going, oh my God, look what they're doing to those nonviolent people. And that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. And I would argue purely off of the basis of just like, of like studying and like hearing like people that were around at that time talk about it. But I always think about Kwame Ture's quote about nonviolence. He went to the South, originally participated in CORE, I believe. No, SNCC. He was involved in SNCC.
Yeah.
And SNCC, what at a time was like a mixed racial, like nonviolence project. And by the end was a Black nationalist, like pro self-defense group. So something that he said was nonviolence requires the opponent to have empathy. The United States has none. So even in their time, right, that's before the Black Panthers is still just a voting bloc in Mississippi. You know what I mean? So it's like, so I would argue it only ever worked to a small degree. And at this point, like if you go to a demonstration, right, and you see someone who like in a fit of anger, in a fit of justified rebellion and revenge, like rises up against a cop, people who are, you know, to varying degrees think that they're committed to nonviolence will collaborate with the police to put that person in jail. So, and I say that to say is that like the misunderstanding, like the co-option of nonviolence, which for the majority of people who are engaged in it, it was a strategy. It wasn't, you know, like it wasn't a subculture. The people who engage in it now mostly seem to focus on it as like a a way to perpetuate order. You know what I mean?
But also, I mean, I think that people, because they don't really want to talk about it, because yet again, it's like the good white people narrative. You have to think about the nonviolent movement in context of the Cold War, right? So this is like this whole hearts and minds of brown folks, and every time somebody got their asses whipped in Selma, all of the Soviet Union and China would say, "See,
Yeah.
you wanna go with them? Look what they do to people that look like you." So I mean, there are a lot of different factors, but that was like a huge one.
Yes.
Like, I actually wrote like this post about like black civil rights in war, but that's like a whole other topic.
Yeah.
But so yeah, we valorize that because, you know, hey, please don't kill us, and also see how good we are and how empathetic we are.
Yeah.
Like we didn't have to,
Yeah.
but we let you go to like have a drink at a water fountain.
Right.
Aren't we great? But it was a lot more complex than that, which is why it was a strategy.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think like one of the lessons that you have to give it to, or it seems like one of the clear lessons of sort of like the MAGA movement is that they're shameless.
Right.
That's one of the reasons that they're like pretty bulletproof. We're like,
Well, no, they're not. Captain Kim.
Sorry, I misspoke. Yeah, there we go. Hey, that was good. That was good. But yeah, just underlining Bill's point, like I think people don't appreciate how much like shame played into it, and empathy had basically nothing to do with it.
Right.
So yeah, we could go on that forever. Does anyone have another question?
Yeah, I guess I think we'd take one
Don't
more.
be shy. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't see anything, so there you go.
Over there.
As a white person who wants to go get my people or come get my people, I'm interested in how I can learn from you about the processes of historical research of primary and secondary sources. That I mean, I read, you know, the afterword to your book. No, sorry, I'm talking to you. Yeah, Bill. Yes. I want to read your book when it comes out.
You do.
Yeah. No, but I know you did a lot of work of finding sources. I know you found somebody to write in Sicilian, not in Italian. I know you did a lot of channeling to fill in the gaps, but all of this methodological process of how you brought this situation to life is fascinating and inspiring to me. I just want to know more about it.
Well, so when I say it was a town secret, like I mean it. Like there was like very little written about it. In fact, I was just telling a friend of mine earlier today, was the annoying thing is because of the comic, there's actually now more written about it, and I get like, oh yeah, whatever. And feel like I've actually heard Chris like, oh, you know, why did he do this? I was like, because it literally was not available. Yeah. So it was interesting because literally I found like maybe 3 chapters on the actual event, and they talked about what the officials did. They talked about what the Klan did. But they didn't really mention much about what the immigrants did. Like they said, like they tore out picket fences, they tore out cobblestones out of the street, and they actually threw lumps of coal at them. And then somebody just capped one of them. So yeah, so the largest part of the research was literally like, what was the Klan saying then? Which is literally what they say now. I mean, like, I'm sure like probably 2/3 of these of you out here would not have been white. Like that's how I opened my town talk, was like I asked people who was of African descent, who was of Asian descent, and then who was Southern Eastern, like, and pretty much everybody had their hand up. I was like, none of you are white, like 100 years ago. But that was basically like that was the major part of the research, was literally like, what did it mean to be Sicilian then? What was the Sicilian and the Italian experience then? What was the rise of Mussolini and all? Like that was like where most of the research was. But the town event itself, there was just like maybe 30 pages written on it. And now there's like podcasts and stuff. So yeah, where they tell me I'm wrong. Great.
Word.
But yeah, so I mean, I think that's probably like, I'm not a historian, but I'm a history nerd. So when I go and it's like every time I do something, it's like an insanely annoying deep dive.
Yeah. I mean, if I could ever, just if I added anything, I think a lot of it is just is just about if you read a secondary thing, go through the footnotes, go through the sources, read those.
Right.
Get familiar with there's like the Freedom Archives, there's projects like that if you know what you're looking for, especially, you'll find a lot of good material. I think for me, what I find when I'm talking to someone individually, that I have some sort of faith in, can maybe like move away from more reactionary politics.
Right.
I guess I don't have those conversations with white people, but in general, I think it's sort of less about. I think it's less about like the breadth of information that I know, but just like what seems to work is I'm able to basically like write a clear story, like some cause and effects, and to be able to say, like, if you want to know where I read it, here it is. You know what I mean? And if they have like their own thing, like, but like at least my community conspiracy theories like go crazy and are contribute to a lot of people just not being curious about things. I often ask them, like, let's share information. Like, where'd you find that? You know what I mean? And like look it up, figure out how it's connected. And a lot of times, how these like ideas are platformed come from places that the person themselves often probably is not knowledgeable about and probably wouldn't even support. You know what I mean?
Well, let's say I once had to do some talk about writing the other, which they paid me, so I did it. Because I didn't want to. But one of the things I told people, so if you're actually going to do something that you're researching, and they're asking me about writing the other, and I said, go into thinking that whatever you think you know, you're wrong. Like, just automatically. Like, you're just wrong. Right. And then I think that's how, like, for me, that's what helped. Because I'm like, you know, so many things are written like, oh, I know these people because I ate at one of their restaurants once, or, you know, like that, or I was in Peace Corps, and yeah, that's not the same as knowing somebody. So that's how I think how I've approached history in and of itself, and like that project or other things that I've done that have been historically basis, just kind of assumed that I didn't know. Like the Black Madonna there was like totally an accident because I picked the town that they were from, because like in Italy there's like I think like what is it, Europe ends in Milan and then the rest belongs to Africa, and then I picked the one town when I'm reading, they're like, well, this town in Sicily is close to Africa, so they call everybody Valmuyan. But so then I was like, oh, I'll pick that, and then like just on the top of my head I was just like, oh wait, like, you know, because I'm Catholic sort of. I was like, wait, all these, and I lived in Europe. I was like, wait, all these towns have patron saints. Who is it? And I looked, and it was like, oh, Black Madonna. Like I didn't even know that Black Madonna. I mean, I knew Black Madonnas existed, but I didn't know there were like 4 in Sicily. So I know it's like when you're open like that, I think that kind of helps you find like all these different things. And if you're open to finding it and like, you know, then finding out if it's real, then that's like, for me, that's the best way to handle it. I guess we're done.
Yeah, I think we did it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, there you go. No scripts. Thanks everybody for coming. And thanks for inviting me.
Oh yeah, of course. All right.